klausītojai, labā dienā iš Rygos. Prieš savo pranešimą norėčiau padėkoti Vykintui Vaitkevičiui, Audriui BEINORIUS ir organizaciniam komitetui už tai, kad šī konferencija įvyko ir galiu pasidalinti savo tyrimo rezultatais. Su jūsu leidimu aš tęsiu savo pristatymą anglų kalbā. So my presentation is about Dievturi in the Centenary of the word Dievturība, and I did this research with the aim to study the phenomenon of Dievturība, the role of the Dievturi nowadays, and their balance between the real tradition and newly appeared religious forms. The tasks for this study are to analyze the evolution of and the sources of worldview in Dievturība, the Dievturi impact on society, and the role nowadays. The methods used are the content analysis in periodicals, interviews with the Dievturi, and public discourse analysis. The interim results are available in a traveling exhibition called Latviskās dzīvesziņas dievestība tautas vēsturē Dievturībai 100, which is dedicated for this centenary. On the right side of the slide, you can see two pictures of Dievturi events. The top one is in northern Latvia, near Valmiera, and on the bottom part of the slide you see the names giving ceremony of the child in one of the Dievturi shrines in Latvia. So if we talk about Dievturība, it is often thought of a specific period since it got its name, but some people say that atoms were there long before anyone called them atoms. So this year marks the centenary of the word Dievturība, so since the 1925, yet Latvian ethnic religion have been evolving ever since, and the need for putting scattered folklore and spiritual heritage into order came with the first Latvian national awakening in the mid-19th century. Dievturi, however, acknowledged the creativity within authentic framework of the tradition for its contemporary sustainability. I would like to quote Mary Magulik, text from her work History of Folklore, where she writes that so long as one acts freely with desire to connect to the traditional within a society, resultant creations, expressions, or interpretations are authentic. On the right side of the slide, you see the summer solstice ritual, and on the bottom side of the screen you see the Ūsiņi celebration, which takes place between the spring equinox and the summer solstice, and it is characteristic that it is dedicated for a deity that symbolizes the light and is taking care of horses and bees. Here is an offering of an egg to be put inside the hole in the ground. So these kind of traditions have been kept alive all the time, but at some point the systematization of these traditions took place, and nowadays for 100 years it is called the Dievturība. Then if we talk about the sources of worldview, in Dievturība, number one is 250,000 of the Latviju dainas. Those are the sacred texts for Dievturi. It is also UNESCO World Heritage since 2001, namely the Cabinet of Folk Songs, as it is called in English. And pivotally, the divine and virtue chants are the main purpose, and of course other Latvian folklore units also are taken into regard. Studies and up-to-date discoveries in archaeology, ethnography, folkloristics, and other related scholarly domains also constitute the source of Dievturība worldview, so it is ever evolving. And of course, writings and further studies by Dievturi scholars, notably those published in Dievturi books and periodicals, namely Labietis, which was issued from 1933 to 1940, and then in exile from 1955 till 2018, and Dievtur Vēstnesis, which has been published since 1928, but since 2019 it is available, published digitally. Here you can see some pictures of literature that Dievturi use. So it is the Latviju dainas, Latvian folk songs, then Dievturu carokslis, which comprises the important tenets of Dievturība. Then Latviešu tautas dzīvesziņa is a set of 5 volumes that were published in 1990s and are still used by several people who do act in folklore groups, and they practice all the annual rites and rites of passage. So they use this as a reference book, as well as Latvijas rakstu un zīmes, that is a scholarly book on Latvian signs and their interpretations. Then if we move on talking about the impact by the Dievturi on Latvian society, it would be noteworthy to mention that nationwide Hilfort studies began exactly because of Dievturi. So even today, if a historian would like to know something more about Hilforts across our country, then no doubt the Dievturi scholar Ernests Brastinš would be the first one to quote, even though so many years have passed since his studies, he's still unsurpassed in his scale of work. Then, of course, folk costume studies were done, and wearing folk costumes as the formal attire in also urban setting was begun by Dievturi. Then Latvian Archives of Folklore entrusted to make 2 studies. One was the Latviju dainas mythological index, so it is a study that has collated all the Latviju dainas verses that mention or refer to mythological contents, and also the myth tales on dievs, in Lithuanian it would be dievas, are also collated, commissioned by the Latvian Archives of Folklore and done by Dievturi. Then also Dievturi had published collations of songs of dievs, of virtues, of annual rites, etc. And it is important to note that systematization and naming of Latvijas raksti signs, for example, the one that you see on the bottom right corner is what we call saule, and this sign is attributed to 8 seasons of the year, so in between each of those seasons there is a celebration, namely Jāņi, which was just recently in the summer solstice. So the interpretation of these signs that have been present so far in folk costumes and folk art had got the names by Dievturi, and still most members of the society of the Latvians use precisely those names given by the Dievturi. Then you can see some photo of the Hilford study, and then there is a photo of Latvian folk costumes used in wedding as a formal attire, and Latvian sacred image depicting Dievs, Mara, and Laima, and their signs as well. Then also it is interesting that Dievturi had been chairing several influential organizations, namely the Society for the Research of History and Antiquity, Latvian War Museum, and Union of Independent Artists. Then also Dievturi did sophisticate kokle playing. In Lithuania you have kankles. We have a similar stringed instrument, and this became as a part of education, and people started to learn this instrument also for a performance, like staged performance, and also folk dance and choir performances also flourished because of Dievturi initiative. Then you see a photo on the left bottom corner. It is the Latvian song and dance celebration, the dance part of it. And many times the Dievturi had been exactly the people who have been in charge of the choreography and the way how the dancers move and how they create one Latvian sign or another in the group. Then also on top center photo you see that there are people playing kokle. This is a photo from exile where Dievturi kept the tradition alive the same as it was done under the occupation in Soviet Latvia. Dievturība never ceased to exist in both sides. And Dievturi also maintain Latvian identity, namely making the nameis ring that you see on top of the screen available for all Latvians who wanted such ring, because during 1930s this particular design of archaeological findings in several places of Latvia became a symbolical item of identity for Latvians and those who went to exile during the Second World War, and those people wanted to re-establish and strengthen the ties with the Latvian nation, so they wanted to have such a ring, and precisely Dievturi jewelers were those who taught the next generation of jewelers to be able to create all rings that were demanded from the exile society. Of course, Dievturi also paid much attention to the education, so the 2 multiplied by 2 camps and 3 multiplied by 3 camps were began by Dievturi. So these are camps that initially started as youth cultural camps in the United States of America, but gradually those first young generation members grew older, they became adults, they got their own children, and then it became a 3-generational camp. So it became 3 multiplied by 3. And in these camps, Dievturi teach how to make jewelry for the people who have never done it before, how to celebrate the annual rites, how to learn something more about our history, about our culture, and our language, and so on. Because several people who live far away from the mainland Latvia, they live in an environment which is very much foreign to the Latvianness, and that's why they enjoy the opportunity to spend a week together with like-minded people and to enrich themselves in terms of Latvian culture and identity. Of course, the Latvian song celebrations continued also in exile, and on each such an occasion, Dievturi organized exaltations, which are the rituals with a specific topic, and this all continued throughout the occupation time. Also, Dievturi played a decisive role in restoration of independence of Latvia, and here you can see the right bottom photo where Evalds Valters, famous Latvian actor, who actually lived up to 100 years of his life, and he could be maybe an actor in Guinness World Records book because he was the oldest still performing actor, as far as I know. There has been no other performing actor in his age. But he was actually the Dievturi as well, and he was given the honor to hoist up the national flag of Latvia on the tower of Riga Castle, first time since the occupation started in Latvia. So it is the photo of 1988. And also Evalds Valters was actually the person who got the passport number 1 since the re-establishment of independence of Latvia. So he had the passport number 1. So it shows the role and the respect towards Dievturi. Then also about the Dievturi role nowadays, it is first interesting that still today, if we talk about the real tradition in terms of religion and religious setting, Latvia's Dievturu Sadraudze is the only religious union registered and still representing Latvian religion in this country. So although there are other groups that are secular, let's say folklore groups and so on, no one of them had ever attempted to register their actions. So if we talk about religion, then Dievturi are the only ones who keep this heritage as a religion. Others may keep it as a custom, others may keep it as a tradition, but it all stays in the secular, so to say, environment. Also, the Latvia's Dievturu Sadraudze is a member of the European Congress of Ethnic Religions, which roots in Lithuania. And the way of practicing a self-sufficient Latvian spirituality, both in the rites of passage, annual rites, as well as in everyday life, is what Dievturība offers. There you can see a photo down there with the names giving ceremony in Latvia, in the Lokstene shrine, where a child is risen up and being offered several wishes to come true when the child grows up. Also, there are several Dievturi written handbooks, both for rituals and traditions and recordings of ancient practices in several chronicles that have been collated by Dievturi. These are also nowadays widely used as reference books by folklore practitioners who themselves claim not belonging to Dievturi. So it means that the Dievturi work that has been done so far is actually applied by not only Dievturi themselves, but also a wider audience of the society. And then the source of Latvian spiritual refreshment to draw strength from in order to wend one's way through the world with an upright stance. This is the slogan of the Latvian Life Wisdom School that is run by the Latvijas Dievturu Sadraudze, most notably known for its summer camps that takes place each year. And during these camps, the older generation of Dievturi meet with the younger newcomers, and they can have this intergenerational education and cooperation during several days. And for Dievturi still the values are the same for the nation, for Dievs, for the fatherland, for the sake of the Latvian Latvia. And there you can see two photos. The upper one is from Riga Castle. This is the this is the ceiling painting of a room where all the new coming ambassadors have to do the ceremony of credentials. So when an ambassador wants to start to work in Latvia, each of them have to pass this ceremony. And during this ceremony, above the heads of the ambassador and the president of the Republic of Latvia is this ceiling painting, and it is done based upon the directions of the Dievturi. And you can see there is Dievs, there is Laima, there is Mara, and there is Jānis. So these are four deities of Dievturība. So they have their hands in blessing posture, so they give the blessing for the new ambassador to start the work in Latvia. And on bottom photo you can see the Svēta shrine, which is the closest shrine of Dievturi to the border of Lithuania. It is in city of Jelgava. And also there, of course, as it is in the Loksteņa shrine, we have Latvian flag hoist there. If we talk about the recent developments, then in both shrines, the Svēta shrine and the Loksteņa shrine, the rites and pilgrimages take place. Also because several scholars from foreign countries have more and more interest into Dievturība, a new tool has been developed since 2023. It is called the Dievturi Dictionary. At this point, it has more than 10,000 entries, each collated in a specific topic that can be chosen in the dictionary. Also, people often notice that the term that they are looking for is not yet in the dictionary. So if such a thing happen, then they can click a button, and then it will be reviewed to be added to the dictionary. So it is very interactive way of updating this. Also, because Google Translate often lacks any understanding of specific terms, the Dievturi texts and the Latvian folklore texts get mangled in very bad way, and you cannot grasp any meaning at all, just because some of those terms have one or two letters different from completely another term, which has a completely different significance. And just because Google Translate algorithm thinks that that could be misspelled, that another word, it deliberately put those meanings into the text, which were never intended and present there. So that's why this dictionary helps a lot both scholars, both students, both Dievturi Dievturība practitioners, and also it helps to know more about Latvian traditions for the generations of Latvians that live abroad, and they have lost partly already their Latvian language proficiency. So this dictionary helps them regain back the ability, also because this is the only dictionary available online developed by Latvians that has the pronunciation in international pronunciation alphabet graphemes. All the other dictionaries lack this function, so this actually helps to learn the way how to pronounce the words as well. Another thing is the amendment of Article 51 of the civil law. This was announced in 2023 by the President of the Republic of Latvia, which grants Dievturi the right to officiate legally binding wedding ceremonies. However, in order that this amendment would come into force, additional adoption of a specific law dedicated for the religious union, namely the Latvijas Dievturu Sadraudze, is required. And this law of the Latvijas Dievturu Sadraudze is currently in Saima, the Latvian parliament, and the first reading has been completed already, so there are 2 more readings to go. When the law of the Latvijas Dievturu Sadraudze would come into force, also the amendment of the civil law would come into force. So, also this traveling exhibition, Dievturība 100, which started in the beginning of this year, has been traveling across Latvia in several museums and exhibition halls. Now, at the moment, it is in Riga, the capital city of Latvia, and there is a photo on the top right corner with the exhibition, how it looks at the Latvian Library for the Blind. This exhibition has been made in a way that all the exhibits, excluding 3 exhibition cases, all the other exhibits are actually available for the touch, and there are all braille texts both next to the exhibits, and the all contents of the exhibition are available in braille as well. The on-site experience is in both Latvian and in English, and also the exhibit, each part has the QR code which offers supplemental contents online. So the exhibition can be accessible also for the wheelchair users. So it is very inclusive way how to represent the history of Dievturība, its continuity, and its story. There is the website address of this exhibition, how Dievturi do communicate their message. Then another interesting development has been done recently, because there are Dievturi who live all across the globe, and notably one part of them live in the southern hemisphere. And those people ask when to celebrate the celebrations of the year, the annual rites. Would it be appropriate to shift them to the Latvia situation of the seasons, of the temperatures, of the sunshine times, or should it be according to the local season? Because, as you know, in the southern hemisphere, the seasons are shifted for half a year. So this tool is available online on the website dievturi.lv, and then in the crosslet menu, when the user chooses Laikskaite, the chronology, then it opens a tool where a person can click GPS, and the GPS will calculate all the 8 times in the year of celebrations, what are the dates, what are the times when to start to celebrate. And this is very practical tool used every day from all across the globe, because people want to be sure when would it be appropriate for them locally. Also, Dievturi do put effort into becoming more available for the readers and people interested in, also not from Latvian language speakers, but also those who speak and read English. So the social media contents have been recently available also in English, and the cooperation with representatives of other ethnic religions have been developed recently, including, for example, the common joint organized Baltu Krivule since 2011, which is a meeting of the Baltic spiritual communities, 1 year in Latvia, 1 year in Lithuania, and 1 year in Poland. So this is the way how it is done in the Baltic cultural sphere, but also there are people who want to visit our Latvian sacred places from distant countries, and many of them come from the respective ethnic religions, and they also want to cooperate with the local tradition, which namely is Dievturība. So as for conclusions, first, the historical foundations. Though named in 1925, Dievturība represents a continuity of pre-Christian Latvian spiritual traditions rooted in folklore, even though there are some who say that it is invented tradition, and some who say that this is not authentic, and so on. There have been several claims. And again, if we look in the reality of nowadays Latvia, Dievturi are the only ones who do it as a religion. So it is not, let's say, staged event that takes place because the local government asks for a folklore group to do it. Because there should be some cultural events, but it is done purely because of the spiritual need. And it continues on today as it was before. The ideological sources, the worldview draws from the Latvijas ethnographic and archaeological scholarship, and Dievturi authored literature. So it means that the sources are based upon some fundament, and you can track to the roots from where each of these stances come from. We are aware of what is the creative part. We are aware of what is the original, let's say, inherited part, and we see that in the Dievturi materials, even most notably recent ones, much attention is paid to the sources, to the quotations, to the specification of where the information comes from, where the information stems from. The cultural contribution, the Dievturi have influenced Latvian cultural identity through the ritual practice, folklore systematization, and national revival efforts, and still they are intact. And what people think of the names of the Latvian signs and the interpretations of them also stem precisely from the Dievturi efforts. The contemporary relevance is that Dievturība serves as an ethnic religious system, facilitating rites and daily spiritual practice grounded in national values. And this is important, that this is the tradition that is rooted in this country of Latvia, and it is autochthonous, and whatever is to be regarded as traditional becomes also relevant in terms of Dievturība. About ongoing developments, the legal recognition, digital tools, and international collaboration mark the Dievturi current institutional consolidation and outreach. This is also to be developed further, because there are several similar issues across the Europe, faced by several ethnic religious groups, and if there is some good practice that works in some country in Europe, then because of this cooperation among ethnic religious groups, the others also can know about it and then do cooperate with their own respective governments to improve the state of affairs. So this is about it. Ačiū už dėmesį, and I would like to continue on with the discussion and questions and answers.
Thank you very much, Uģis, for your very interesting talk.
Ačiū.
Thank you so much for your talk, providing really kind of overview, historical and contemporary situation regarding the Dievturi's movement. Before shifting to discussion, still I have some questions. I don't know, maybe some other participants are aware of this, but could you tell a bit more about the principal person behind the formation of Dievturība? I'm talking about Ernst Brastinch. As I remember, he was imprisoned and killed during the Second World War in Russian campuses. But how he came to this idea Because, this morning we had a very interesting presentation about Jonas Trinkūnas, leader of Romuva, about his dreams, about his visions, about his spiritual searches that brought him to this idea to establish a Romuva movement. So what about Brastinch? It were some particular circumstances, some kind of spiritual experiences that brought him to this idea.
Thank you. This is a particularly interesting topic. It is known that Ernest Brastinch was born in northern Latvia, in countryside, and he experienced the Latvian traditions as they were intact in the end of the 19th century. And this was living tradition that he saw. And all the annual rites were present there intact. And then after he had been studying in St. Petersburg, he had opportunity to meet several other members of Latvian intellectuals there. They had, let's say, a coterie, a group of intellectuals called Uģis. And in this group, they developed the Latvian national art, like sophisticated art in terms of paintings and also the sculpture and so on. And during that time, also the interest into Latvian folklore itself made Brastinch think of underlying system. So if those traditions that he had experienced in his childhood and early ages, wouldn't it be something as a fragmentation of a certain earlier intact system that has been fragmented? And then he started to work at the Latvian Archives of Folklore, and he also became friends with Kārlis Bregžis, who also was a scholar on his own about Latvian religious customs that had been recorded by church visitation protocols by Lutherans around Latvia that actually collected the practices that are non-Christian, and they were recorded in each parish of Latvia where people do still practice some pagan things. That was all recorded, and that was collated by Kārlis Bregžis. So when Ernest Brastinch and Kārlis Bregžis met, they understood that it is a big, let's say, scale of study to do, and nobody had done it so far in systematical way. Of course, there were some national romanticism attempts of creating some new deities by Alunāns and Auseklis that are notable, the so-called the young Latvians or the new Latvians, which was the movement of the second half of the 19th century. But they didn't want to go the same path of inventing some deities. They wanted to actually look for the roots and the heritage that have been recorded in the Latvian folklore and the still then living tradition. And what they did, they found Victor Seglītis. Victor Seglītis was also influential writer back then. And what happened, Victor Seglītis started to organize specific meetings of intellectuals in 1924. And what happened is that in one such a meeting at Victor Seglītis' flat, they had this conversation together with, there were about 20 intellectuals, both historians, theologians, folklore scholars, and so on. And what happened is that I understood that Latvians had a religion, authentic religion, autochthonous religion, that has been split into several regions, into several places, and there are these fragments of it, and that this tradition is still alive. And for the urban setting, because urbanization became more and more prominent that time, they thought of how to make this in a system that is common for and understandable for all Latvians in all regions. And then they started to discuss on this, and in 1925 they actually decided about the name Dievturība. But it was not invention. It was not invention. It was systematization of something that was all the time there. So there was not a single dream. There was not a single person that Brastinš met and then it happened. No, it was a sequence of events. I hope that I could answer the question.
Yes, surely. Thank you so much. But still, I have one more bit provocative question. You mentioned in your presentation quite many times the concept of Latvian spirituality. Dievturis are practicing a self-sufficient Latvian spirituality, again, Latvian spiritual traditions, spiritual practice, and so on. But beside of mentioning various celebrations, festivals, or rite de passage, still, how you could describe Latvian spirituality? And you are using the term Latvian, not Baltic, as we sometimes refer to. It means that you are separating Latvian from Lithuanian somehow, or Prussian. And again, I'm quite interested that it seems to me that external rituals, dainas, singing, actually creates a kind of principal part of this kind of spiritual activity. But my impression is that spirituality, as we understand nowadays, at the end of 20th century, in the beginning of 21st century, is always described, almost always, not always, but almost always described in terms of individual experience, by using psychological concepts like feelings, sensations, experiences, and so on and so on. But what about other concepts that traditionally are related not only to religious practices, but also to the spiritual practices? Let's say there is a kind of particular virtue system described and used in Dievturība education programs. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Indeed, Dievturība has the core, and this core is the virtue system in Latvijas. And this virtue system is affirmative, not prohibitive, but affirmative. So, for example, the important thing is the dichotomy between honor and shame. So it means that each thing that a person is deciding to do or not should be seen as whether it is honorable or whether it is shameful action. And then this becomes very self-centered way. And it means that what is honorable, what is shameful. For example, if we would compare it with the category of absolute virtue system, which say, let's say, lying, telling lies is bad, okay? But if you have a situation, let's say there is a deer, an animal in forest, a deer, And there is a Dievturi sitting there, and Dievturi clearly sees that deer is going that way, okay? The deer, the animal goes there, okay? And then the hunter comes to the Dievturis, and hunter asks, did you see a deer? And the Dievturi says, yes, I saw. Where did it go? There. So this is the question of lying. Is it bad or good? No, it is a question of honor and shame. What is the highest value? What is the added value of your action? Would it be the benefit of, let's say, life, let's say society, let's say yourself, and so on? So this is one thing. The second thing about the virtue system of the affirmation is the first virtue is to be good in all senses of this word. Then there are 4 personal virtues. That is, be clever, be industrious, be beauteous, be cheerful. This is how the person herself or himself acts as an individual. And then there are 4 virtues that are, let's say, public virtues, that are connected with the society, with the interaction, okay? And that is, let's be fond, amicable, let's be generous, let's be righteous. Okay, so this shows the way how Dievturi should act among the society. And then the last virtue is to be godly, to be in accordance with Dievs. So these are the affirmative virtues that Dievturi do find in Dainas, in Latvian Dainas, in connection with deities, in connection with Latvian deities. That each of these Latvian deities that we have, let's say, Mara, Laima, Jānis, and so on, you can see that they actually become as an ideal to try to practice, to try to imitate, to try to follow, to try to embody yourself these good qualities of those deities. So it means that in Latvian, this tradition that we find in Dainas, that is also continued by Dievturi, is not the distance from deities, not the, let's say, aive against deities, but very much closeness, very much trying to become like a deity, trying to embody the qualities of deities. This is very much maybe different from other some traditions, and also in terms of last thing that I would like to add to this is the life and death view. Is that with regard of Dievturi is the world view that after the death the soul, which is eternal, it returns to Dievs. The body or the stature, which is ephemeral, it goes back to the Mother Earth, Mara, but there is something in between which connects the both, and it is Velis in Latvian language. And this Velis is what becomes the ancestral spirit, which is venerated by the descendants, the children and grandchildren of that person. And the Velis is that one which establishes the connection between the living people through the Velis to the Dievs. So there is this understanding of that each person after the death also becomes venerated by the next generations. So this poses the human also something as to be an object of veneration. Yes, please.
Yeah, but as I understand, this system of virtue, as you described just now, is being promoted, is somewhere described and used among the Dievturis, yes. But by the way, I am very much curious, that story you mentioned about hunter and deer is exactly the same as Buddha told 2,500 years ago, and it is written in Pali Tripitaka when he was teaching. Yeah, exactly. When Buddha was teaching his disciples that sometimes to lie in particular circumstances can be a virtue. That's exactly you say today.
Oh, wow.
It's very interesting correlation. And I don't know if there are more questions, but still I have one more. Please prepare some questions for Uģis. I have one more, maybe last one question. As you maybe understood today from our previous discussions, particular topic of this seminar is spirituality. And just before you, I was talking about India and Lithuania and Lithuania in India. Also, we had some issues regarding how we should react as we see the kind of invasion of all kind of elements, mantras, yantras, and so on, from other religious traditions into the practice, into the festivals of let's say, Romuva and other groups and communities. So what about situation and how you deal in Latvia in such cases? Because as I know, you have in Latvia all kind of possible Indian religious communities, yoga centers, not only Indian origin, but Buddhist and so on, so on. So what is situation in Latvia, and what is attitude and approach to deal with it?
Yeah, thank you. My answer would also connect with your previous mention about that. Let's say the Romuva states them as the Baltic spirituality, and Dievturi state themselves as Latvian spirituality. You mentioned this two ways of dealing with things. This is a part of the answer to this question, because in terms of Dievturība, the Dievturi tend to look into the practice what has been actually intact for Latvians. We see that Dievturi also do studies, and they do analyze what has been practiced in Lithuania, what has been practiced among the Prussian people, what has been practiced nearby, let's say by Finno-Ugric peoples and so on, as for the regional context to understand better the peculiarities nearby. But it is very much a filter in terms of Dievturība, whether this is something that has been understandable and practiced and let's say applied by the Latvians locally, autochtonically. And if it is like that, of course, there are some universal things that are practiced all around the globe. You know, there are many traditions that use the fire as a medium to communicate with the spiritual realm. There are people who use the ring-like choreography of motion. There are people who act in 3 steps, stressing the last step in some rituals, okay? So there are some universal traits that do not have geographical restriction. And then, of course, if Latvians had practiced it and if this tradition has been alive, then we can witness that there are just common things that match, but it is not necessarily taken from somewhere else. It is just matching part. So if we look in nowadays situation where there are like a supermarket availability of religious options in this environment, then of course some of these people may notice, oh, you also use fire as puja. Yes, you also use fire as Zoroastrians, so you took it from Zoroastrians, yes. So you know there are these kind of short shortcut approach of interpreting some things. But that's why we do witness that Dievturi tell about themselves that they are Latvian, ethnic religion, Latvian autochthonous religion, and they do not want to broaden the scope much outside of the Latvian scope to keep it focused, because there are, of course, some individuals who are very happy to introduce some customs from different religions, but then it becomes very fluid, and then it becomes without borders, and you don't know what to expect. Will it be the reverence of Latvian deity or a foreign deity? What is the intention of the ritual? You know, there are so many questions then, if it is not clearly focused on, and if the practitioner herself or himself actually doesn't know what the person belongs to, whether it is a new religious trait, new religious movement, or it is something like syncretism or what. There are so many questions. That's why Dievturi try to keep on track with what they have, and the Latvian tradition itself is quite, let's say, rich in terms of studying and learning it, and even a life of a human being would not be enough to comprehend all that is just here without looking outside. Yeah.
Yeah, but let's say, what about Sanskrit? We just discussed that for most of Lithuanians, this kind of Lithuanian-Sanskrit relations and ties becomes crucial, and especially for interest regarding the Indian religious history and practices. Every Lithuanian is stressing this relation. What about Latvia? What about Dievturis? How important for you is, let's say, Sanskrit heritage and Latvian Sanskrit relations? It plays any role? Nothing.
Well, in regard of Sanskrit, of course, it is clear that both Lithuanian and Latvian languages are the Indo-European languages belonging to the ancient, let's say, strata of these linguistic traits, and if people look into the etymology of some words, they also check how it is in Sanskrit. How could it be in Proto-Indo-European language? These help to understand some connections, some ties in vocabulary, of course. But this is not crucial in terms of the Dievturi, and more it is the way how to understand the influence of cultural, let's say, migration across the world. And just one example, up to recent time in the Latvian academic circles, it was considered the sequence that out of India theory that the people from India and nowadays Iran arrived to the Baltic cultural sphere, and then the Baltic cultural sphere was established. There was this one theory very much adopted and accepted. But then just 6 years ago, completely not connected to scholarly groups discovered quite the opposite, that the migration processes were much more complicated, and that they were in the opposite direction. So not from India, but to India, and I talk about the Indo-European migration. So where is the source? Whether it is India or we are the source for the India, these are the questions of archaeogenetics, and these are the questions for the studies, for the further studies, and sciences evolving all the time, and we will review again our conceptions that had been so far more and more, and this is upon scholars. But Dievturi do not pay so much attention to and so much affinity to, let's say, Indian cultural heritage in order to re-evaluate or to see ourselves more, let's say, valuable. This is not the, let's say, this is not the way how Dievturi stress something. No.
Yeah, but this is certainly this issue of Aryans migration. It's much more complicated because it has a political and ideological nationalist implications. I'm talking about India.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm talking too much, and I would like to invite auditorium to put forward some questions and to join discussions. Would you like to ask something or to discuss, please? So now we have an online send question you will hear now.
Okay.
Yeah, so the question is, I heard many terms: religion, spirituality, secular customs, tradition, etc. What is the preferred self-referential term for Dievturi?
Thank you.
Have you heard?
Yes, yes, thank you. The Latvian way to Dievs. The Latvian way to Dievs is the Dievturi way how they express themselves. The Dievturība is the Latvian path, the Latvian way to Dievs. Because in Latvian language, there is the word Dievs, and this word has been used in this country, in this language, for a long time. And according to Ludvigs Adamovics, which is a Christian theologist and church history scholar, he has attested the fact that when the priests and preachers arrived to Latvia from Germany, they discovered that there is already a term, a local term, Dievs, and they appropriated it for the use of denoting the Christian God. So this was the case in Latvia, according not only to Ludvigs Adamovics, but also Agita Misāne and other scholars. They attest the fact that this term was indigenous. This was the autochthonous term. And this is not the only one. There are also other terms that have been, let's say, superimposed with a Christian interpretation later. But that means that if nowadays, for example, a person asks, "Do you believe in God?" This question, "Do you believe in God?" Then in this kind of question, the implication is whether you believe in Abrahamic God. Because in case of the Dievturība, there is no such verb to believe. Dievturi do not believe and they do not believe. Dievturi are aware of Dievs, or they are not aware of Dievs. So there is completely different set of mind in terms of the sacred. You do not believe and you do not make believe anybody to believe, but you are aware, you become aware, or you are not yet aware, you do not yet feel, you do not yet appreciate, or you already are aware, you have this awareness. This is the way, let's say in Latvian, it sounds atskārst. atskārs is to be aware of. I don't know the Lithuanian verb for that, but in Latvian this is this way. So when people say dievs in nowadays Latvia, it can be either the Christian understanding of, let's say, the Abrahamic understanding of dievs, or it can be this autochthonous understanding of dievs, and they are both. So in answering the previous question, the definition by Dievturi, what is the Dievturība? It is the Latvian way to dievs, the autochthonous one. I hope that I could understand, answer the question.
Yeah, it's quite clearly. Yes, please, Vikintas has a question now.
Yeah, thank you, Uģis, for your presentation and all the information you have shared with us. But since you are talking about dievs, can you tell something more about your pantheon? Why Perkons is missing, and is your dievs the principal one, or there are no hierarchy, or how it is organized?
Thank you, Vikinte. Yes, so Perkons, of course, is one important deity that is common across the Baltic cultural sphere, and also to the east and to the south. There are several places that do revere the thunder deity. And in terms of Dievturi theology, let's say the term for Dievturība as the type of religion would be panen katenoteism. Not pantheism, but panen katenoteism. Henotheism with kat becomes venerated sequentially, one after another. So in 1 year there are 8 celebrations, and in each of these celebrations there is venerated one aspect of dievs. So Perkons, the thunder deity, is also one aspect of dievs. Let's say Dievturi use such a wording that they say there is water, and this water has a name, and it is the Baltic Sea. But then there is the water, the same water, and it has the name Neris. And then there is the water, and it has the name, and it is Memele. So the river, the lake, has its own name. So the sacredness is one, but it has several functions, it has several names, and so Perkons is one of them. In terms of Dievturība, this is a henotheistic view that each of these functions has the way of referring to them as the deity. What regards about the hierarchy, there are 2 theological approaches in Dievturība, actually. One approach says that there is one dievs, and all the Perkons, Mara, Laima, Usiņš, Jānis, and so on, there are all aspects of one dievs, and they're all equally prominent. There is no hierarchy under them. So it is all in one level. Another way of theology is that it puts in higher hierarchy 3 aspects. It puts the spiritual aspect, which is called dievs. It puts the material aspect, which is called Mara. And it puts the chronological, the fate-related aspect, the temporal aspect, which is called Laima. Because it is temporal, it is connected with Saule. So this another approach makes the 3 aspects, the 3 deities above all deities. So what is about Perkons? Perkons in Dievturi theology is regarded as the active aspect of dievs. How dievs expresses himself in active position in active way, in powerful way. Yes. I hope that I could answer the question.
You got answer, Vykintas? Yeah. Again, I have one more question, if I may. So I would like to come back to that topic of your interest on Shinto studies, Shintoism, because I remember that famous Lithuanian scholar of religious studies, Gintaras Berecnevičius, maybe already 3 decades maybe even more ago, he stressed that actually Shinto tradition is extremely close to ancient Baltic religious practices, and he also stressed the necessity to develop some kind of comparative studies in order to get better understanding and ancient Baltic religious practices. So you are doing that exactly. You've been doing, at least. I know, by the way, that there is one postdoctoral project already submitted for Lithuanian Scientific Council regarding the comparison of sacred places, Lithuania and Shinto. But what about impact on Dievturība of your research? You've been dealing especially with the rituals of Shinto, as I remember from your previous presentations. So can you tell, I understand that this is a very broad topic, but in some general lines, what do you benefit? What Dievturība already benefited from, Shinto studies? What kind of important discoveries you got? If
Thank you. This is a good question. Well, the purpose of the study was just to compare, and that's it. Just to compare what has been practiced so far and what is intact. And what I discovered is that if you would look from the outsider's view, you would see completely different costumes. You would see completely different architecture. You would see completely different setting, geography, and language, and so on. It would see no comparative part in that at all. However, if you do analyze the texts, which are not in nowadays Japanese language, that are in archaic Japanese language, that is only present in some sacred texts and in Shinto rituals, and if you have the knowledge of this kind of linguistic, let's say, level, then you notice that the ritual text actually, and the intention of ritual and the basis of the ritual is completely the same. So the intention, the way how the person reverts to the sacred, how the person experiences the sacred, how the person prepares for the ritual, what the ritual as the rite of passage, what does it signify for the person, yes, signify for the person, and how is the deity perceived, namely as the ancestor, because you would not speak with your ancestor in young people's jargon. You would use the old vocabulary that your ancestor most likely could understand, That's why the way how to refer to deities is in old language, because it is more understandable, more natural for the deities, And what I discovered is that if you have this deeper insight into the underlying levels of the ritual, into the significance of the ritual, then you see that it is very much similar, very much the same psychology there, But if you look only like a bystander from outside, you will notice nothing there. It's nothing similar there. So this is the results of this research were so because I could interview the priests in Japan, because I could observe the rituals, because I could access the limited access priestly literature that is only in 3 places in the world that where you can read them, you know. And this is a very specific topic. But if I answer about the influence of this study to Dievturība, I think that one big influence is that Dievturība is on the map of Japanese understanding. That Dievturība is noticed as existent. Before that, Japanese would not know about existence of the Baltic spirituality, of the Latvian spirituality, and of the Dievturība. It would be completely white spot on the map. But because of this study, because this study has been published in Japanese language as well, when people look for the Baltic states writings, when they look for the Latvian writing something about Latvia, let's say, then they discover these articles, then they discover the contents, and then they understand, wait, this is interesting. Those people there, 8,000 kilometers away from Japan, they actually have something of their own. They still practice something which is rooted in their own tradition, which is very interestingly similar to ours. And this discovery for Japanese is very significant. And that's about it, yeah.
Thank you so much. So it seems that our time is coming to an end, but still we will have time for a very short question. Dainius is coming there. Yeah, please, Dainius.
It was nice to see and hear you. Paldies Dievs.
Dainius, labai ačiū.
So, Ugi, as you see, this is not a question, a greeting, and probably this greeting can be treated as a concluding remark of our talk. So, thank you once again for all discussions, for broadening our understanding of Dievturība from historical and contemporary perspective. And I invite once again to applaud.
Labai ačiū uz dėmesį.
Thank you. But still you are invited to stay with us online and to join other presentations today and tomorrow.
Ačiū, labai ačiū.